The New Mutants has had a very troubled history. It was filmed way back in early 2017 and was initially supposed to have a release date in April of 2018. Then, Deadpool 2 was scheduled for early June. Then Fox pushed Deadpool 2's release date up to New Mutants' original release date, and they did this because they didn't want Deadpool to have to compete with Solo. Following this, The New Mutants was then pushed to February of 2019. Then, a couple months later, Bohemian Rhapsody was pushed up into November of 2018, which was X-Men Dark Phoenix's original release date, prompting Dark Phoenix to be pushed up into the February release date that New Mutants had, and New Mutants to be pushed to August of 2019. Then Disney bought Fox, and since then New Mutants has been pushed to spring of this year, and because of COVID it's been pushed to later this month. Now, as that approaches, it's becoming very clear that Disney won't actually be able to release it theatrically. Some people think that Disney will go ahead with pushing back the release date even further, while other people think that Disney will instead release it direct to Disney+. Here are a few reasons why I think it's not going to be going to Disney+. So there are three main reasons why I think that Disney would not put New Mutants on Disney+. First is Disney Plus specific. Now I think a lot of people can agree that New Mutants doesn't really belong on Disney Plus because Disney is really marketing Disney Plus as being a family-friendly service, and nothing on there is above PG-13. Meanwhile, New Mutants is rated R and is a horror movie, which means Disney is definitely not going to put it on Disney Plus no matter what I say in the rest of this video. Now, is there a potential for them to put it on Hulu, which they own about 60% of? Yeah, I guess a little bit. But you gotta keep in mind that Hulu is also kind of family friendly and they don't want to taint that. But also that Disney is really focused right now on getting Disney Plus subscriptions and not necessarily Hulu, even though they own that as well. The second reason is that Disney might not be allowed to contractually put New Mutants on streaming. So imagine it's around 2018-ish, you're 20th Century Fox. You have a bunch of movies that you made, and it's going to be Disney's responsibility to release them once you've been bought by Disney. Now you realize that Disney's instinct might be to put most of these films straight to Disney+, but you don't want that to happen because you don't want the people who made these movies to lose out on that theatrical release money. So I say that it's quite possible that 20th Century Fox put in their contract when Disney bought them that they were required to release all of the movies that 20th Century Fox had already made theatrically. I.e., Disney might not be allowed to put New Mutants on streaming, they might be forced to theatrically release it. Now this is speculation on my part. I don't really have a source on this, but if you look at it, there hasn't been a single 20th Century Fox movie that was made by them before Disney acquired it that hasn't been theatrically released. And the last reason I have is that Disney just doesn't want to be sued. So if you remember, earlier this year, Universal made Trolls World Tour. Now, they originally intended to release this theatrically earlier this year, but due to COVID, they ended up releasing it direct to video on demand. A lot of the actors in the movie, as well as I'm sure a lot of the crew members who didn't get as much press coverage because they're not famous, were kind of pissed off about this. The reason is that they signed onto this movie under the impression that it was going to be released theatrically and that they'd be getting the box office money. But they're going to be getting video on demand money now, which is less. So the actors and the crew members feel cheated out of money. If Disney releases New Mutants on a streaming service, they might have to deal with potential lawsuits. Now, I know you might be thinking about, what about Artemis Fowl and Mulan? Well, a while ago, Disney made a movie called Noelle, and decided about a year before they were going to theatrically release it that they were going to instead just release it on Disney+. That gave them about a year to be able to sign contracts with everybody involved with the movie so that they'd understand that it was going to be released on streaming. It wouldn't surprise me if now, with all of the contracts that Disney puts out for their movies, that people basically have to sign a portion saying that Disney reserves the right to release it on streaming instead of theatrically if something came up. Now, obviously, that's great timing, And in this case, they won't get sued for Artemis Fowl and Mulan because everybody involved signed a contract saying that they understood that the movie could potentially be released on streaming instead of theatrically. But with the New Mutants, that movie was produced entirely by 20th Century Fox back in 2017, and Disney had no control over the contracts, which means that if Disney wanted to release the New Mutants on a streaming service, it means they might have to have all new contracts signed with everybody involved with the movie so that they understand it's going to be released to streaming, otherwise they could have lawsuits on their hands. And the time it takes to do that, they might as well just theatrically release it and get that box office revenue from it. It does kind of remind me of the case of the Three Musketeers. So, any of you that might not know about that, basically, two independent film producers, Alexander and Ilya Salkind, you might know them from making the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, or at least the first three of them. They made a Three Musketeers movie in the early 70s that turned out to be 4 hours long. So they decided, you know what, let's split this in half. The first half will come out in 1973 as The Three Musketeers. The second half will come out in 1974 as a sequel called The Four Musketeers. They got into a lot of trouble because they got sued out the wazoo by everybody involved, because everybody involved got paid for being a part of one movie, while the Salkinds got the box office revenue of two. This would end up making the Christopher Reeves movies a little worse, but that's a topic for another video. So yeah, that's why I think New Mutants will not be going to Disney Plus or any other streaming service for that matter. Hope you found this interesting, hope you subscribed, and that's pretty much it. Bye.